Tonight, if you're hearing these words, there's a reason, not because of an algorithm, not because of chance, but because there is a strange pressure point in a human life, a moment when everything you've suspected about this world suddenly snaps into focus. You may have lived for a long time with the feeling that you don't belong here. You may have prayed the way people taught you, tried to be good, tried to be right, tried to be enough. And still, deep inside, there's been a hollow space you couldn't name. And then nights like this arrive when you realize what you're missing isn't faith. It's a door, a mechanism, a recognition code that, when spoken from the right place, shifts your entire signal. Listen, place your hand on your chest, right at the center of your sternum. Feel your heartbeat. You don't need to do anything else, just feel it. That rhythm isn't random. It's like an ancient transmission pulsing from inside you, steady, persistent, as if something has been trying to remind you that you are more than what the world calls you. Some people will say it's just biology. Some will say it's just emotion. But in the hidden tradition of the Gnostic texts, writings that were hunted, buried, burned, that pulse is treated as evidence of a spark, a fragment of awareness that does not belong to the material system. And it is because of that spark that you can hear this story tonight. You've heard of the Gospel of Philip, a text discovered in the Egyptian desert. There is a passage in it that has always made authorities uneasy, not because it is violent, not because it is rebellious, but because it touches the one thing every religious power structure fears most: a human being remembering who they are. The passage describes a night in a closed room where only the carefully chosen were present, not the crowds chasing miracles, not the curious chasing spectacle, but those quiet enough to hold something dangerous. And what was it? Not a new prayer, not a new ritual, not a doctrine meant for debate. Something so simple you might almost dismiss it, and that's exactly why it can break a cage. A secret name, not a name you call upon, not a name you beg with, a name you speak as your own. A name like an access key, a phrase like a frequency, a way of speaking that makes the system lose track of you. And this is where people misunderstand. They think, so it's a spell. No. In the way this tradition tells it, it isn't magic, it's a channel change. Imagine you've spent your whole life broadcasting on a band that everything can lock onto. Fear can hear it, shame can hear it, doubt can hear it, anxiety can hear it. And the forces that feed on low-frequency states have memorized your signal so well that the moment you try to grow, they know exactly where to strike. A thought lands, a worry spikes, confusion floods in. You think it's you, but sometimes it's just an old mechanism trying to keep you in the same old place. In the Gnostic worldview, this mechanism is described as a cosmic architecture. At the highest level is the monad pure source, pure consciousness, not seated on a throne to judge, not demanding anyone kneel, not requiring fear. The monad is not an angry external god. The monad is the silent foundation of reality, limitless presence. But between you and the monad, there is a barrier, a lower builder, a false creator. In this tradition, it is called the Demiurge, the artisan who constructed the material realm like a beautifully engineered prison. And the Demiurge doesn't work alone. Beneath it are the Archons, rulers in the ancient sense. Each one governs a frequency band: fear, rage, addiction, confusion, despair, self-rejection. They do not create. They cannot generate consciousness. They can only distort what already exists, bend thoughts, bend feelings, bend perception so you broadcast a signal they can consume. Sounds like myth? Maybe. But here is what makes myths terrifying. Sometimes they are the oldest language for psychological mechanics we still live with every day. Have you ever experienced this? You decide to make a clean change, a new habit, a breakthrough step, and at that exact moment, a thought appears. Not today, tomorrow. It's pointless. You're not good enough. You'll fail again. Who are you to change? It arrives so fast you confuse it with truth. But if you watch closely, it doesn't feel like an organic thought. It feels like a needle placed precisely into your soft spot. And the moment you believe it, you drop back into the old frequency. That is how the system holds you. Not with physical chains, with identity. Because this is the Demiurge's and the Archons' critical weakness in the Gnostic narrative. They can only control you if you accept the name they assign you. A sinner, a broken being, someone who must beg for love, someone who needs permission to touch the sacred. And do you know what happens when a human being stands up and says, "No, I am not that"? The entire architecture collapses. No violence required, no war, just one shift in frequency. This is why so many mystical lineages were hunted through history. Not because they lacked morality, but because they produced freedom. You may have heard stories of councils selecting which writings survive and which are erased. You may have heard communities branded heretics for saying a single dangerous sentence. The kingdom is not out there, it is within you. That one sentence alone is enough to threaten every intermediary system. Because if the kingdom is within you, no one gets to stand between you and the door. If the path home is inside you, you don't need permission. Now return to that closed room. In this tradition's telling, Jesus didn't speak like a king. He spoke like an awakener. He chose those who could hold what could not be turned into spectacle. And he spoke of a name, not a name that summons power from outside, but a name that triggers remembrance from within. Picture this. You live in a city where everyone is labeled, filed, managed by numbers. The most dangerous thing isn't rebellion. The most dangerous thing is becoming unclassifiable. The system looks at you and cannot find the code that matches your signal. You don't fight it. You simply stop appearing on the channel it understands. That is what invisible means here. Not movie-style invisibility. Frequency invisibility. You still live. You still walk. You still work. But the emotional hooks that once grabbed you suddenly slide off, like water off stone. Not because you are stronger than them, because you are no longer feeding on the same bait. Pause. Breathe in slowly. Exhale long. If you feel something stir in your chest, warmth, vibration, a strange sense of this is hitting something real, don't rush to explain it. In the Gnostic language, that resonance is a sign of the pneumatic, the one whose spark is fully alive. They described three kinds of people. Those who are purely material, nothing moves in them when they hear this. Those with a faint spark touched briefly, then it fades. And those whose spark is like a coal, one breath, and it ignites. If you're still here, still listening, it may be because you're in the third group. Not to make you special, not to inflate you, only to clarify this. If you've always felt different, if you've always sensed something off in the way the world runs, maybe it wasn't because you were broken. Maybe it was because you were remembering. Now here's where the story sharpens. Right before someone truly changes channels, the system plays its final defense. It makes you doubt simplicity. You will think, there's no way a few words can do anything. You will think, this is just self-hypnosis. You will think, if it's real, why isn't everyone talking about it? And that last question is the trap. Because if this were shouted publicly as entertainment, it would lose what the tradition insists is essential: recognition. The words do not carry the power by themselves. The awareness behind the words does. You can repeat a phrase 1,000 times like a parrot, and nothing happens. But you speak it once from the place of remembering, and it can be like striking a match on gasoline. So what is the name? In the version you provided, it is a 3-part structure, 9 syllables, presented as a recognition code. I am the light eternal. But if you read it like a slogan, it passes right through you. In the mystical framing, these 3 parts are 3 nails hammered into 3 prison walls. Part 1, I am. Not, I am my job. I am my past. I am my wound. I am my mistake. Just I am, pure being before labels. When you speak I am, you step out of the identities the system uses to control you. Part 2, the light. Not a bulb, a symbol of origin. Clarity, awareness, the true source. You say the light as a reminder. I come from what is real, not from the cage. Part 3, eternal. This strikes the largest chain, linear time. The most sophisticated prison isn't bars. It's fear, I will lose, I will die, I'm too late, I'm not enough. When you say eternal, you pull your awareness out of the clock that fear uses to threaten you. 3 parts, 1 phrase, 1 code. But again, it only becomes a code when you speak it from the right place. And what is the right place? Not begging, not pleading, not hoping it works. Declaration. Like walking into your own house and saying, I'm home. No permission required, no proof needed. Pause again. Now I'll give you a scene you can read, like an audio script, and also visualize for your video. Imagine you're alone. No special location required. No incense, no props, just quiet. You sit upright without tension. You place your left hand over your heart. You inhale slowly, pulling the breath down into your belly. You exhale long, as if you're releasing dust from inside. You do this 3 times. Each exhale, you set something down. I'm not enough. I need permission. I'm afraid of what people think. You don't battle those ideas. You simply place them on the floor. Then you bring your attention to the center of your chest. You look for warmth. If there isn't warmth, it's fine. You just observe. And when you feel that living pulse, the pulse that doesn't ask anyone for permission to beat you, speak the phrase. First time, small, like a whisper to yourself. I am the light eternal. You don't chant it. You don't perform it. You say it like you're remembering. Second time, clearer. You feel it move through your chest, your throat, your mouth like warm electricity. Third time, you speak it like a seal, not to convince anyone, only to stamp your own field with truth. I am the light eternal. In this tradition, that is the moment the channel shifts. And right after, here's where the audio gets dramatic. You may feel nothing at all. If you feel nothing, don't panic. The system often tricks you with the demand for effects. Deep shifts often begin with quiet signs, a softening in your shoulders, a sudden space in your mind, less noise, a natural exhale you didn't force, a sense of enough without explanation. Then the next day, something triggers you the way it always used to, and strangely, it doesn't hook. You still see, you still understand, but the bait doesn't catch. You begin to notice some emotions acted like owners in your house, but they were only long-term tenants. You don't have to evict them violently, you just stop giving them the keys. Then comes phase 2, resistance. Because when you change channels, the system doesn't attack directly, it attacks sideways. It sends thoughts that sound like you. It didn't work. This is stupid. You're being manipulated. You're embarrassing yourself. The danger is that it uses your voice. It wears the mask of reason. It pretends to be sobriety. And if you don't recognize it, you will drag yourself back to the old frequency and call it my decision. So, here's the instruction, spoken low, slow, like a secret. Don't argue with the thought. Don't try to win. Just notice it and return to your phrase. I am the light eternal. Every time you return, you drive the nail deeper. Every time you return, you starve the system. And when the system starves, it thrashes. Now I'm going to open a larger door so your audio has an open thread and a hook for the next episode. There's a detail people often miss. If the name is a recognition code, it doesn't only make you invisible, it also becomes a compass. When you shift channels, you don't just escape traps, you begin to see paths that were previously hidden. This is where the story becomes a journey, not a ritual. Synchronicities increase, meaningful coincidences. You think of someone and they contact you. You need information and it appears. You stand at a crossroads and assign an overheard phrase, a dream, a symbol pushes you in a direction. In this tradition, that isn't luck. It's what happens when you enter the unity channel, where separation is thinner. But there is a cost. When your signal brightens, it's not only good forces that notice. The old mechanisms notice too, not because they can see you, but because they can see the empty space where you used to broadcast. And they try something else. Not fear. Temptation. The temptation to become special. The temptation to start preaching. The temptation to crown yourself a teacher. The temptation to prove you're right. It sounds noble, it feels spiritual, but it can be the most refined trap, the ego wearing sacred clothing. And here is your hook for the next episode. In the next episode, we'll talk about an Archon removal protocol, the signs that reveal when you're being pulled back through ego, pride, the hunger to be recognized. You can open with, there's a reason many people touch the light and then fall even deeper. Not because they're weak, but because they were led into another room of the same prison. That one line alone will keep them listening. Now for the closing, something that seals and opens at the same time. If you've listened this far, don't run to collect more information. Don't hoard knowledge like objects. Knowledge doesn't liberate, recognition does. Tonight, do one thing. Sit still, hand on heart, 3 slow breaths, and speak the phrase not to ask, but to remember. I am the light eternal. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to announce it. You don't need anyone to confirm it. You only need the system to understand. You are no longer broadcasting on the old channel. And if tomorrow, next week, anytime you feel yourself pulled, triggered, hooked, dragged into loops, don't fear it. That is only a sign you made them hungry. Just return. Return to the heartbeat. Return to the spark. Return to your phrase. Because some doors don't open with force. They open with the right code. Pause. And here is the final line. Delivered slow, low, dangerous. The hook for what comes next. But remember, when you change channels, you don't only become invisible to predators. You also begin to see what was hidden. And there is one single sign that reveals whether you're truly escaping or simply stepping into a more sophisticated layer.